Okay, so we are live everywhere. So if we want to get started, we can. And for everyone else who isn't speaking, can we please make sure that we are on mute, please? Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to this Fireside Chat. We will be talking about addressing colorism in the South Asian community. So a few guidelines, be respectful to others. Remember, this is a safe space. Anything you can say, no judgment. And also make sure to enjoy this as a learning experience. And yeah, I hope everyone enjoys. So the agenda, first we'll be doing an icebreaker, then a presentation on Black Lives Matter and colorism. Then we're not going to be going into breakout rooms, but just a discussion with everyone here. And then at the end, we'll be doing a wellness activity. So, so the first icebreaker activity, if you feel comfortable, please turn on your camera. And or if not, then you can do a thumbs up reaction if you answered yes or agree or have felt experienced like a statement that I'm going to be saying. And then turn off your camera if you answered no or disagree or haven't felt or experienced this. So I'll be going through a variety of statements. And if you agree, if you've been through this, turn your camera on, turn it off if you haven't. Okay. So the first statement, you are a vegetarian. The second statement, you are bilingual or multilingual. Third, you are a first generation college student. You believe in God. You have ever felt you could not express your true feelings or opinions because you felt restrained by society's gender norms. You have ever felt judged based on the way you look. You were ever bullied. You have ever bullied someone. You have ever gone through something and felt like you were alone in your experience. You have ever felt victimized by racism. Your parents or grandparents might still express prejudicial thoughts. You have ever been embarrassed of taking your parents to a school event. You have ever wished you had been born into another race or religion. You have ever been in a romantic relationship that you have hidden from your family. You have ever been in an interracial romantic relationship. you would ever consider being in an interracial romantic relationship given the right person. You or someone you know has a visible or non-visible disability. You or someone you know has ever been affected by sexual violence or harassment, including domestic violence. You feel you know very little about your cultural heritage. People routinely mispronounce your name. You have felt proud about your identity in front of others. You have ever seen your identity as a weakness in front of others. You told the truth for the entirety of this exercise. All right, yeah, that was it for the icebreaker activity, just to get a feel about, you know, some of these statements that we never kind of talk about. And yeah, again, this is a safe space. So next we'll be talking about Black Lives Matter. So Black Lives Matter is an international social movement formed in 2013 in the United States in response to the acquittal of the murders of Trayvon Martin. And now this has become a worldwide movement. So the mission is to eradicate white supremacy and build local power to intervene in violence inflicted on Black communities by the state and vigilantes. Anti-Blackness in policy, education, workforce, climate activism, mass incarceration, healthcare, and more systems exist. There's policies that there's redlining where Black communities get put out in the outskirts of towns or in poorer areas and aren't allowed loans to get better houses. Education, it's harder for Black people to attain an education because of how expensive it is. Workforce, there's a lot of discrimination in workforce based on race. Climate activism, a lot of climate issues mostly affect Black communities, especially in the United States, whether that be they're near factories that pollute, so they're being affected by that. Or like we can see Oakland has so many factories and ports where they're near poor communities that have more Black have more Black people in them. Mass incarceration is basically a new form, a modern day slavery, modern day Jim Crow, as people say, as academia has said. And so yeah, a lot of Black people are in jail for things that are legal now, like marijuana right now. And healthcare, we see a lot of racism in healthcare, seeing the worth of people. If there's a white person and a Black person right next to it, who's worth more to a doctor or medical professional. And also in learning about diseases, learning about how diseases look on Black bodies, that's not learned so much in med school or whatever either. We see more white bodies and see how diseases look on white bodies. And also, so color preference is a cousin of racial prejudice. And like prejudice, it is closely linked to the urge to obtain and maintain power over others. So color of your skin shows, in history has shown power. White people have had power the most. If we look in India, light colored people have had power the most because they were associated with British people because they were bright white. Colorism differs from prejudice mainly by making distinctions within a nominal racial group instead of across groups. So colorism exists within a community rather than multiple. I mean, it appears in mostly every single community. However, colorism is about a specific community, not like racism, which is you're racist against a specific community. So colorism. To be true allies to the Black Lives Matter movement, we must address the colorism in South Asian communities and recognize its racist origins. So colorism is a discriminatory practice against those with darker skin tones that treats individuals with lighter skin tones more favorably. And colorism is a product of racism. How has colorism been historically perpetuated in our community? Casteism is huge. Individuals with lighter skin tended to be associated with higher castes, whereas individuals with darker skin were associated with lower castes. And colonization. People in power had lighter skin, like I mentioned, and the British favored hiring fair-skinned South Asians. So how does our community continue to enforce colorism today? Media. Media, a lot of Bollywood celebrities have lighter skin. You rarely see in Bollywood actresses or actors with darker skin. There's a lot of also kind of blackface. We've seen the Punjabi industry with like a movie called Kala Shah Kala, where Binu Tillon had dark makeup on his face, like extremely dark makeup, to portray a darker person. And also celebrities often endorse skin lightening products. A huge one was Priyanka Chopra, and she's gotten called out for that, and she actually apologized recently that she didn't know better. And with skin lightening products, South Asian women are among the largest consumers of such products. Fairness cream lotion market in India estimated to be about $450 million in 2015. And again, societal pressures, marriage. And an example of this is Indian matchmaking, where when people are doing arranged marriages or looking for rishte and like there's auntia involved and stuff, it's always like, oh, like we want this girl to be fair, like fair skinned and whatnot. So that's another pressure in society, and especially like with girls, I think this is more where they're looked at on their skin color when they're getting married rather than kind of compared to boys. So we're not going to go into breakout rooms, and we're just going to have a discussion, and I would like everyone to participate in this discussion. And so if you feel comfortable, like make sure you feel comfortable. I don't want to pressure anyone. So I think the first question is, when was the first time you experienced colorism as a bystander or a personal experience you have? And then a follow-up question to that is, have these experiences shaped the way you view yourself? I can start off. I experienced colorism as a bystander. I have cousins, like 4 girl cousins, and we're compared all the time based on everything. Height, weight, and skin color was a huge one. And I saw my cousin, use products to lighten her skin, or use home remedies to lighten her skin because like her mom pressured her, and that like affected how she grew up looking at herself, and to the color of nail polish she wears to make sure that her skin tone suits it. She still thinks about that today. So yeah, that's the first time I experienced colorism, and if anyone wants to share their experience.
Hi everyone. I just started my video. Oh, you guys can see me. Perfect. Okay. It wasn't working earlier when I was participating in the like original chat, or you know what I'm saying, the icebreaker. Okay. So the first time I experienced colorism as like kind of an offshoot, wasn't like direct, but it was in the sense where I understood what it was when I played, like growing up, I was played sports, and the main sport I played like until high school was soccer. And in playing that, it was always like, oh, like growing up, like in middle school, I remember like, oh, like don't play outside that much, or play when it gets a little shady, like in the evening, because that like all of a sudden you're gonna get darker, you're gonna get really dark, and that being my sport of choice, and like honestly the only thing I was good at, it was like oh, like, should I not play soccer? Like, am I looking uglier? So I think that was my my primary, like my first experience of colorism. And has it shaped the way I view myself? Yeah, like in middle school, I would like notice the sunspots that I'd get from, not, or like I'd notice I'd get tanner during soccer season and I'd like feel insecure about it, definitely. But as I grew up and I learned about colorism in this more objective sense and not like really living in it, like I kind of was more educated about it. I like talked talked myself through it and just understood that it doesn't define, like if I'm getting tanner while I'm playing a sport in the sun, it doesn't make me uglier, you know what I mean? And that's just like a um that mindset that I had when I was younger was put on me, like that was just an effect of colorism.
Thank you, Raina. Anyone else want to share their experience about colorism? You can, if you're not comfortable talking, you can say it in the chat as well.
Yeah, so I see somebody in the chat. I'll just read it out. It says, as a kid, we played outside in the sun a lot and would swim in an outdoor pool and would always get really tanned every summer. We were always told how dark we're getting. That made us obsessed with not getting tanned. So that kind of goes back to what Ryan just said about, most of the Asian community being like, oh, don't play outside while it's dark because, you're going to get dark. And just the general idea that darker is worse than being lighter.
Yeah, definitely. So I see that that's a common like experience within our community about like going outside with the sun, and that's something me too. I used to swim and I became extremely dark and orange, I guess, and everybody made fun, like it was like wedding season during swim season, and I would go to weddings and people would be like, oh, like you got so dark, or like, oh, your daughter's so dark, but and I was like, I felt bad about it, but I don't know, I was in like 7th or 8th grade. I didn't know. And then I saw, like, I think it became a trend. Like, on to the next question: how did my attitude about skin tone develop throughout my wait, sorry, I can't even see all the questions. How did my attitude about skin tone develop throughout my life, particularly my childhood? I think when I was like a fresh teenager, I saw that like tan skin was kind of in, like people were going to Coachella and they were so tan, and that bronze tone, and like, wearing white with the tan skin, you just look nice. And I think that made me appreciate kind of like the melanin in my skin, and just getting naturally tan, I felt like I was glowing. Like that's how it developed, I think. And I was so proud at first. Like, I know in 7th grade, like I didn't, like, I hated swim because like I was getting in shape, but at the same time I was getting darker. So I was like, is this like a win or a loss? And so but now, like, I feel like right now my foundation doesn't match my skin tone because I've just been inside, and so that, like, I'm used to being outside and I love being outside. So yeah, that's how my attitude about skin tone developed. Anyone else? We can go on to the next question. Why do I have a positive or negative attitude about dark light skin? Again, it's been perpetuated by my family, like, mainly, and so that's why I had like a negative attitude. And then the positive attitude came from, like, I think kind of social media, or just like fashion or whatever, or something. So yeah, that's where I came, like, my attitude. And I would love you guys want to share where your attitudes of for colorism came from.
I believe when I was little, I watching a lot of media. You would see, especially Indian media, the Fair and Lovely ads would always pop up. So that as a young person, you're pretty impressionable, which leads to more attitude towards darker light skin. But as I've grown older and seen how skin color really has no basis on how you are as a person, things like that, it's changed towards that it really shouldn't matter. And I feel like slowly it's changing, even in the South Asian community, as we've put a lot of pressure on these Bollywood actors and other people, and now we're seeing more celebrities come in that have darker skin. For example, Kaka, who's the new Punjabi singer, he's had a lot of big songs that have come out, and he has darker skin, showing uh, a change in the attitudes towards darker skin in South Asia.
Yeah, exactly. And I think like when we're talking about media, I think a lot of songs come into that too. And like there's a lot of songs, just like the caste system is perpetuated in these songs, so is like skin color, I think. I'm pretty sure Sidhu Moosewala had a song about like somebody being Gori or whatever, you know, or and I know that there's one song called Bali Soni, like, oh, you're pretty, but I have darker skin, and like, so I felt that I wasn't worthy enough for you. Like, there's that type of song, and so there's a lot of songs about colorism, and especially even like Surinder Kaur, who is an old singer, has Kala Shah Kala, which I mean, that song is about being proud of having a dark husband, and getting rid of all the like gore or whatever. And so I don't know whether that song was made as a joke, or you know, like, or is that truly like, I remember one time my mom's like, no, like, don't sing that song, like at a wedding, like don't sing that song because so and so's like Beyonce is dark, so it would seem like I don't know, it just, there's all these politics around this stuff, but colorism is so ingrained into our culture, which is crazy. But yeah, anyone else want to share their positive or negative attitude, where it came from, about dark light skin?
I think for me, a positive attitude definitely has developed like after being kind of educated on colorism, like I was saying earlier, but also seeing the way social media has developed into a very like it's given people a platform to like show their it's given people a platform to show who they are and show like pride in that and be very self-promoting, but not even necessarily in a narcissistic way. And even if it is, it's part of the like the social media like influencer culture, but also like back to the point, I feel like it's given people like, yeah, I look like this, like I'm dark and I'm beautiful. And like from everyone from like dark skinned Black girls to like darker skinned like South Indian or like Punjabi girls, um, posting like their skin color, like not without a whitening filter, like in the sun or even in the shadow, just saying like, you know, like I love my melanin. And I think that has given me definitely a positive attitude. Yeah, and I definitely agree. Someone in the chat said that sharing these like vulnerabilities, um, like sharing vulnerabilities and sharing these things that like stereotypically would make you feel insecure based on these like things like colorism and racism, it has made people like speak more on social media and be active on social media.
Yeah, I definitely think social media plays like again a huge role, because at the same time it perpetuates colorism, but at the same time it helps in the sense of like, what's the opposite of perpetuate, like, you know, cancel colorism, I don't know, but like a lot of people I have seen, and it depends on who you're following as well, I feel like A lot of times you hear like unfollow the people who don't like. I know this goes for girls, and I don't know the like a guy's experience with colorism as well, but unfollow those girls who make you feel like insecure, I guess, and follow those people who make you feel secure, and beautiful. And like a lot of people even at my school have been like the South Asians at my school, especially South Indians, because they tend to be darker. They've come out and they talk about their skin color and stuff. So I think like again, social media is great and while being like horrible at the same time. But if anyone has a last thing to share, feel free, or we can move to the next slide. Okay, let's move to the next slide. So what are the next steps to address colorism in our community, and how do we break this generational cycle? It's a lot of unlearning we have to do, just like we have to unlearn racism, because a lot of our parents who immigrated here, like my dad, I'm like honest, my dad's racist, and like we have these conversations and we argue a lot on like just like about the general idea of like Black Lives Matter and what that means, and but that also has to do with colorism. And so beginning those discussions with your families, at a lot of times it will be arguments like how they are in my family, but then they kind of understand and to see where we come from, and hold family members and public figures accountable. If my parents say something racist, I will call them out right on that spot, and I think everyone should, because again, like they've learned this racism, and you have to unlearn it. And same with colorism, they've learned it, and so it's kind of our job, especially being like mostly first generation kids here, to break that generational cycle, because there's a lot of stuff in our culture that isn't great, like the inequality, misogyny, and colorism, and everything goes hand in hand. And public figures, Shadi.com petition. Apparently, I think Shadi.com, you could select if you wanted like a fair person, and so there was a petition about that, so you could sign that petition. And there's a controversial song, Beyonce Sharma Jayegi, which was that like someone so gaudy that Beyonce would be, is it embarrassed, shy, or something, like, so basically it was about colorism, and basically kind of racism right there too. So yeah, and then they changed the song, but it had the same meaning. I think they took Beyonce out or something like that, but everyone was pissed, especially in the diaspora. Like in India, people still kind of hold these values, and in the diaspora, we since we learn so much, we have different views, and there's still a lot of progress to be made. Fair and Lovely rebranded to Glow and Lovely, I think. Yeah, Glow and Lovely. And is it truly a progressive change? No, I personally don't think it's a progressive change. I think that brand just shouldn't exist at all. That those creams shouldn't exist at all. And that Glow and Lovely, like it's still perpetuating the idea that fair skin, you'll glow more, instead of fair and lovely. So yeah, there's more things like that. Again, you can talk about the caste system with your families. I did a whole presentation to my like 20-member family about the caste system, because and like try to, we read one thing in Sikhi, and we like, if you're going to continue like Path Kariyana, but if you're not going to act upon what you're reading, then are you really like doing Path? Like what's the point of doing Path then if you're not gonna actually do what you're saying? And so I went through and I had a Shabd picked out, or from Gurbani, and I was like, look, like this is what Gurbani says, and this is what you guys are perpetuating. And so and like showed like how media perpetuates it, like so yeah, like I think that's one thing you could do. I think discussing with the family is a huge thing. If you're gonna preach to outsiders, like you have to preach to your family too. So that's big. And then we're gonna do a wellness activity. Okay, it's not this link. Let me sorry, that was my fault about the link. But just we're just gonna add some notes about how we felt about what we learned today or discussed today, your feelings on colorism, and anything that you would want to share. Let me get the link. Okay. Does it work for everyone? I sent the link in the chat.
Do you just, it's working. Do you just press the plus button?
Yeah, I think so. Okay, yeah, I think everyone's done, but thank you everyone for writing and saying how you feel, and everything looks nice. And I'm glad everyone got to be a participant in this fireside chat. I think it's important we have these conversations. Sometimes we shun away from these conversations. But yeah, like again, reminder to call yourselves out, call yourselves in, call your family members in, have those hard discussions, and also take action. Sometimes we might not think this affects us personally, but it's important to our community to continue to have these discussions and to advocate for others who don't have a voice like we do or a platform like we do. So yeah, I think that's the end of the chat. If anyone has any last or lingering thoughts, please feel free to say anything.
Thank you so much, Simrit, for leading this talk. I think we had good participation. And if you could unshare your screen really quickly so I can share the next flyer for the next webinar. Okay. So this is our next webinar on the 13th. It is on a Saturday. It's at 11 a.m. Pacific time. It is with our first luminary, Dr. Mandeep Rai. She will be talking about just ethics and stuff that you learn growing up, and she is a PhD. So if you are interested in hearing her talk, she also has a book published. Go ahead and go to our Facebook page. It's just Sahaita at Facebook. And the post is already up about this webinar with more information about what will be covered and who Dr. Rai is. So other than that, I think we're gonna call this a night. Thank you everyone for joining. We appreciate it as always. If you have any questions, please email us at info@sahaita.org and follow us on Instagram, Facebook. Our @ is just Sahaita. If we don't have any more questions about this webinar, previous ones, or any that are coming up, I think we are going to end the meeting and the live. So thank you so much and have a very good night.